All right, back with another Bible in a minute, Genesis 20. This chapter seems really familiar. Genesis 12 was the first time that Abraham and Sarah went somewhere, Egypt, in chapter 12, and they told a half-truth. You see, in Genesis 12 and in Genesis 20, Abraham convinces Sarah to say, hey, you're so beautiful, people are going to notice you, and they're going to want to kill me to have you as their wife. In Genesis 12, it was with Pharaoh in Egypt, and in Genesis 20, it's with Abimelech, or in Hebrew, Avimelech, my father is king. In Genesis 12, God afflicted Pharaoh and his household with plagues, and we assume that through divination or some sort of spiritual discovery, Pharaoh discovers that it's because he has a married woman in his midst. In Genesis 20, this time God comes to Abimelech in a dream and warns him, the woman that you have, that you've taken as a wife, she is a married woman. Do not touch her or you will die. God even says to Abimelech, I know your heart is pure and I've kept you from sinning against me. So call for Abraham and he will pray for you to heal you. Well, Abimelech gets up the next morning, calls his servants together, calls Abraham and says, bro, what? Why would you do this to me? What were you thinking? What evil have I done to you? And then Abraham explains why he and Sarah had the idea, or why he had the idea and told Sarah, hey, I need you to go along with this. Abraham explains, she is my sister. We share a father, but we have different mothers. So I've told her, hey, to protect my life, to save my life, go along with this. Well, we don't know how long they were in this town with Abimelech, but it was long enough for them to realize that God had closed the wombs of all of the women in Abimelech's household. So Abraham prays, and God restores them and opens their wombs. So again, we don't know how long they were there, but long enough for them to realize people are not having babies around here. What I think is striking is that Abraham and Sarah, this is 2 times they've done this. Now, first of all, I can't even imagine how Sarah felt. That she is being put in a compromising position. Yes, it is true, she is my sister, but it's only a half-truth. She's my half-sister. And so Sarah is now twice being put in the position where that her lie may save Abraham's life. So I'm very curious as to how Sarah would have felt being in that compromising position. If I tell the truth, it might cost my husband his life. But again, God has promised that God is going to give a descendant to Abraham, and God is going to prosper him and bless him, and nations and kings are coming from him. And yet they're still playing these games. That's the first thing. The second thing is, even with all their foolishness, even with the fact that they didn't trust, they trust God for a baby, they trust God for the land that God's going to give them, but they don't trust God to protect him. God has promised Abraham multiple times, I'm going to give you a child. Now, yes, Ishmael had been born, and Abraham is like, oh, that Ishmael would live before you and you'd make a mighty nation out of him. And God says, yeah, I'm gonna bless him because he's your son, but I'm also going to bring a son from you. And God, he doesn't withdraw his covenant. He doesn't withdraw his promise because Abraham has made these errors, these mental lapses, these compromising decisions, and putting his wife into a compromising situation. So how gracious, how forgiving, how merciful is our God that he sees us in our weakest, in our times where we have a hard time trusting, where we have doubts, we have fears, and we let our fears get the better of us. How gracious is our God that he forgives us and he loves us anyway. Read chapter 20 of Genesis and let me know what you think.